What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, my name is Alex. I talk movies, and I like talking movies with this guy, my cousin Pat Guy. Yes, his real last name is Guy. I didn't just make a joke out of that. Yeah. So a couple days ago, this is definitely a late video, but a couple days ago, James Gunn on I think it was January 31st, legit the last day of January, announced the new slate of DC movies, and I think it elicited a pretty mixed response from a lot of people. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what we'll maybe briefly dive into what's been released already. I think we'll probably go into the whole Black Adam debacle. Because that was supposed to be the hierarchy, the new regime, and then what's to come and what we're most excited for or what we're not most excited for. So Pat, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm kind of exasperated with a lot of DC stuff, but that's kind of per usual these days.
Yeah, exactly. Just to start off this thing, this DC extend. Well, we'll start with like the DC extended universe. So we had Man of Steel that came out in 2013. I really didn't look at that as like the start of a universe. I kind of looked at that as like the start of its own Superman trilogy, which in hindsight, I kind of wish it was like Zack Snyder's own take on a Superman trilogy. It probably should have been. But the DCEU really came into focus in 2016 with the release of Batman v Superman. And so Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, then that led into David Ayer's Suicide Squad. I do not want them to release the Ayer cut. Then that led into probably the first critically acclaimed DC movie. DC extended universe movie. I shouldn't say critically acclaimed DC movie. That was Wonder Woman, and then November 17th, 2017, the ill-fated movie that only made 93 million opening weekend. That was Justice League, and then you had Aquaman in 2018. Shazam, one of the better ones, 2019. That led into Birds of Prey in 2020. Wonder Woman 1984. I'm getting traumatized from that. And then eventually we did get the Zack Snyder Justice League in March of 2021, a major improvement over the original cut of the theatrical cut of Justice League. Still not amazing, but a lot better. Then we had James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and then the most recent one to have been released from the original DC Extended Universe, Black Adam. The movie that was supposed to change everything. So I think we should get into that to start, I think. Because Dwayne Johnson, man, what the hell?
Dwayne Johnson was hyping up his own movie, and by doing so, made it sound much more important and much bigger than it actually was. That's essentially what it is.
He essentially hyped up Superman for a scene where Superman's in it for 10 seconds.
Well, he hyped up what he hoped would be enough to make his movie successful, which you could tell going up to Black Adam. They really didn't care if Superman's cameo was a secret or not. They talked about it openly. They wanted people to come to it mainly for the purpose of, oh, we have Henry Cavill back, so that's enough. Come see it.
Look. I mean, it would have been cool to see Henry Cavill come back and continue as Superman, because I think I as much as I'm very mixed on Man of Steel and Henry Cavill's portrayal as Superman in general, I do think he definitely got shafted. I think almost all of us, whether or not you're a fan of that Snyderverse or whatever you want to call it, the beginning of the DC, I think almost all of us can agree Henry Cavill got shafted. So even him coming back for 10 seconds was like nice, but is this going to lead anywhere? I mean, and we can and people went to go see it for that. I went to go see it because I wanted to see Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate, and he was the best part, along with Aldous Hodge as Hawkman. But the box office takings for Black Adam was 393 million worldwide. And The Rock made it sound like it was like this $1 billion, $2 billion grossing movie. And the budget was 190 to 260 million. And it didn't even break 400.
No, and I don't know why they ever thought it was good. Like, yeah, Dwayne Johnson is like a big celebrity movie star, sure, but Black Adam is such a
Right.
unknown property, and they didn't even set Black Adam up that well because he's a Shazam
I was gonna say, like, if you're
antagonist.
gonna do that, like, wouldn't you think that would come in, like, Shazam 2 or something?
They sort of offhandedly mentioned him in the first Shazam as far as the empty throne in that
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
but, yeah, you would think that the smarter move would have been set him up in Shazam 2 or something and then do Black Adam,
yeah.
or somehow but it seemed like Dwayne Johnson had no interest in
He
being
had his own
Justice League.
plan for DC, like,
He
he
just wanted to fight Superman.
yeah, yeah, that was
Dwayne
the thing.
Johnson
That
comes
that's
from
the
a place where the hype comes from the matchups, and he comes from a wrestling background.
right.
He thought that would translate to, if I say Black
You even
Adam
see
can
Dave
fight
Bautista doing this, right?
I don't know. It's I
Yeah,
was a mess, and I'm honestly okay that it
yeah,
didn't do well, and it I I wasn't fond of how that whole thing was handled
yeah,
at
I
all.
wasn't I mean, and when you really look at the entire DC extended universe as a whole, how it was handled. Like, say what you want about Zack Snyder, where it's like, yeah, like I didn't necessarily agree with this. I think disagreeing with his vision is something completely different from the behind the scenes stuff. Like, oh, releasing Justice League in 2017 after his daughter committed suicide, slapping his name on the director, on the director credit, to make him look bad. I don't, and I'm saying this as somebody who's not a big Snyder fan. Like anybody who comes to my channel will know that. Like I'm not huge on the Snyder stuff, but like they made him out to be the scapegoat. That's the
I
thing.
mean, whether you like, I mean, I'm someone that I've grown to enjoy Man of Steel. I don't like Batman v Superman. I thought Zack Snyder's version of Justice League was definitely an
It was a lot
improvement.
better. Yeah,
Um, but I think the whole DCU has been kind of a mishandled mess from the
yeah,
get-go.
yeah,
Snyder, at least between his movies, had a sense of continuity and a sense of shared universe.
right.
But like the whole thing has felt so rushed and
Mm, mm,
directionless.
yeah,
And it's been very blatantly trying to compete with Marvel where you just can't
exactly.
right away.
Well, I think us on our podcast, we've always used the analogy, like Dwayne especially. It's like if you do Iron Man and then you go to Captain America: Civil War as your second movie.
You know, like it's tough to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
and then you have the whole thing, like, another thing with Justice League where it's like, you released it when you did instead of pushing it back so you give just that asshole Whedon more time so that they could collect their Christmas bonuses,
yeah,
which I was like, "Why?" Like, I mean, that whole old regime with, Kevin Tsujihara, and I think that's how you say his name, and Walter Hamada, there's just I don't know, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So I mean, what? And then they reverse course and we're like, okay, we're gonna get away from like the connectivity stuff. We're gonna be more like director focused, which worked for a while. Like I mean, you had James Gunn do like Suicide Squad. I thought Kathy Yan did a pretty good job with Birds of Prey as well. Thought that was fun. But
mhm.
then you have shit like Wonder Woman 1984, a movie which I really liked on first viewing and then hated on rewatches.
I was sitting in the theater, not trying to figure out how this was happening.
Yeah,
How did because I enjoy the first one until like the last chunk of it,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but all of '84 was just pretty
Yeah,
bad.
I remember I was just like, "Oh, this is pretty good." Like my first, I think it was just because I was like back in a theater for the first time in a while, and then like on rewatch, I was like, "This isn't very good." Pedro Pascal saves the movie.
Even then, I
I
didn't
know,
think
even
I
then,
didn't
but
know.
yeah, but I mean, this whole thing's been disjointed for a long time, so I think that brings us up to what happened after Black Adam got released, where Dwayne Johnson was no longer part of the hierarchy as he claimed he was, um, and DC Studios was formed with the CEOs being James Gunn and Peter Safran. For those of you that don't know who Peter Safran is, he produced Shazam. I believe he's also
Aquaman.
produced like the Conjuring universe and all that.
Didn't he produce Aquaman?
Yeah, I think he was one of the ones on I think he's been on a couple of these like DC extended universe ones, but I think he's mostly known for like the Conjuring universe, like producing those. So you have at least two creative heads, and that's what DC needed from the beginning. I think you needed like that Kevin Feige type guy, which
Mhm.
I don't think they had. Like they were like, oh, it's Zack Snyder, and then they're like, no, it's Jeff Johns, and then they're like, no, it's Walter Hamada, and
Well, if they did, it didn't feel like it.
Yeah,
But I never felt like there was like a real vision behind it.
exactly, yeah, it just felt like they were trying to play catch up to Marvel the whole time. Um, so on the 31st, we had James Gunn finally announce his slate. Well, not the whole entire slate of the first chapter of the new DCU, but he announced a few projects and how those will tie into his vision and how they're going to tie into the movies that are coming out that are still part of the old DC extended universe. Those movies are Shazam: Fury of the Gods, The Flash, which I don't really care about. The other one is
Aquaman Lost Kingdom.
Aquaman: Lost Kingdom, and then there's another one too, isn't there? Blue Beetle.
Blue Beetle, yeah.
Yeah. So the way James Gunn was explaining it was Shazam: Fury of the Gods leads into the Flash, which acts as somewhat of a reboot.
Yeah, they're gonna use some sort of reality altering thing.
Yeah, which was speculated by all of us. We're like, they're probably going to do Flashpoint so they can reboot it down the line. Because I mean, Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman. Let's face it, nobody's going to see the Flash to see the Flash. Everybody's going to see the Flash to see Michael Keaton as Batman. And then that leads into the new DC universe and chapter one, which is called Gods and Monsters. So that's an interesting title. I'll get into more of that and the structuring and all that. But the first movie is going to be Superman Legacy, released on July 11th, 2025, written by James Gunn. No director yet. Then other movies we have are The Authority. Who the fuck are they? um, and then The Brave and the Bold introduces this new DC universe's Batman and the Bat family. I know you have strong feelings about that. Oh, and since we're talking about Batman, just want to also say this too. Sorry, I know I haven't let you talk yet. Um,
Okay.
but um, but James Gunn also made it clear that stuff like Joker 2, which why are we getting a Joker 2? I'm sorry. And Matt Reeves is Batman. Those are still happening, but they're going to take place in what they call the DC Elseworld. So you won't see Robert Pattinson in this universe as opposed to the Elseworlds universe. Like he'll be in the Elseworlds universe. Like that's going to get a little confusing, I think, as time goes on. So we'll see. So we have that. Then we have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and then Swamp Thing. Those are the movies. Those are the few movies that they announced. TV shows were Waller, the Lantern Corps, right?
Lantern,
There was another one, wasn't there?
Creature Commandos is an
Creature
animated
Commandos.
show.
Yep. And then I forget because I know there was five and five. I remember. I forget what the other two were. I don't have the list in front of me. I just had the list of the movies. Um, yeah, but there's a bunch of TV shows in development that will connect to James Gunn's new universe, live action and animation. I think that's actually interesting. So, what are your overall thoughts on all of this?
I'm pretty mixed, to be
Okay.
honest.
I
I'm
think
kind
a
of
lot of people are.
I'm I trust James Gunn as a filmmaker overall, so that gets me hopeful, but I'm also not super excited by a lot of the things that he talked about, at least right now.
Yeah,
Um, I think Superman Legacy could be awesome. I think we're in desperate need of a new Superman movie, and
yeah,
I think um, doing it, starting over, I think is a good thing. Which is kind of my big problem with this whole thing is they talked about some of the actors from the old DCU regime are the doors open for them to come back. So whatever reality shifting thing they're doing, some people are going to stay, some people are going to go.
yeah. That's
Uh,
the
I
thing.
think that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, if you're doing if you just gotta start over. I think.
Yeah, I
Like
don't
if
think
you're saying like, okay, Jason Momoa can come back as Aquaman, Gal Gadot can come back as Wonder Woman, but Henry Cavill can't come back as Superman. Like that's kind of
well,
bullshit.
it's not even just the like towards Henry. It's also like from
Yeah,
a story perspective. Yeah, you can waive it by going, "Oh, it's reality change," but the general audience still watched Jason Momoa and Gal Gadot team up with Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill.
exactly.
Like that happens to the viewers. So it's messy. I don't think I think they should have done completely clean slate.
And the
I
fact
get
that
that Gunn has already kind of made his footprints in the DCU with like Suicide Squad and
well,
Peacemaker.
I think that's
But
what everybody was worried about. They're like, oh, like if James Gunn's the head of this, is he just going to keep his stuff and get rid of everything else? Which
it's
is kind of
kind of what it seems like.
yeah, yeah.
Which
And then you have the whole thing too, where where he and Peter Safran are open to bringing Ezra Miller back, which kind of might be a bad look on them.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's the stuff that really bothers me. But as far as the actual announcements, Superman, I'm excited for. Oh, Booster Gold is going to be a TV show.
that's right. That's right.
Um, I'm excited for that. I like Booster Gold. He's a really cool character.
Yeah.
The Lantern show, I'm super. That's probably the thing I'm most excited about.
I have a beef with that.
Green Lantern needs to get a redemption, and it's been like a decade since that terrible
But
movie. So
here's my thing, and here's my beef. I think you should switch Swamp Thing and Green Lantern. Have Green Lantern be the movie, have Swamp Thing be the show.
I mean, maybe the Green Lantern. I as long as they give it a good enough budget to like be cool looking, the show could work because that is such an expansive universe. There's so much to explore.
I guess I'm just kind of looking at it as like give Green Lantern another shot on the big screen, like use
Yeah, and
2011 one as like a mulligan, you know.
maybe eventually, but I think that Ryan Reynolds movie really damaged the big screen
Well,
potential.
that was supposed to be the start of all this.
Yeah.
You know, let's
Um,
think about it.
yeah, the Lanterns one gets me excited. I'm a long time Green Lantern fan, so that gets me excited. Um, what Batman Brave and the Bold.
I think it's too soon to do it.
I just while I appreciate that Gunn is a big Grant Morrison fan, it seems, and he said that that movie will be based off of Grant Morrison's Batman run,
Mm.
which introduced Damian Wayne, which is like he said he's going to be Robin, and like that's a great relationship, and Damian's a great character. I just feel like it's weird that we're going to have
Like
a
young super,
25-year-old Superman
and
and
then
then a Batman who potentially has been through like at least two
just
Robins.
bring Affleck back at that time. Then like, at that
I don't
point,
think that's a smart move. I feel like they're afraid to reboot, and they're gonna just alter some things around, and like I feel like it's gonna be a
well,
confusing
because
test.
you know you have that vile section of the internet who's like sell the Snyderverse to Netflix. So I
Ugh.
feel like they're trying like their hardest not to piss them off, but like
Yeah, you
I
just
feel like
gotta
they
cut
are.
the cord. You gotta cut the cord. I
Yeah,
think
that's the thing. You have to move on.
it's gonna be confusing. Like
Well,
as a comic fan, I can be like, yeah, I've read all these stories. I can,
and
yeah,
then
Batman has Damian Wayne as his kid,
and then and
but
then
like,
and then plus two. Can you imagine like having like the Brave and the Bold come out around the same time as the Batman 2? It won't, but
yeah, there's that aspect
or at
too.
least still in like or at least come out when that trilogy is like still happening and like Robert Pattinson's still in his run as Batman. Like people are gonna get so confused. They're gonna go into Brave and Bold and be like, why isn't Robert Pattinson Batman?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I feel like they're not really thinking much about the general audiences, which is an important part of your business structure, which Marvel has been good at reeling the general audience into all of the comic
Yeah,
universe and
they do.
eventually building them up to be like, yeah, we can do multiverse stuff, and the
Yeah,
general audience is with them.
yeah.
Like, whereas now it's like DC already, in the minds of a lot of the general audience, is a
I do
lesser product.
I do think it's crazy too that we're bringing in like the most obscure superheroes like right off the bat too. Like the Authority, who the hell are
Yeah.
they?
To me, it feels like they're trying to kind of do a The Boys slash Eternals type of like you can do something more. But I mean, James Gunn did that with Guardians. He took a vague group
And
and made them
Suicide Squad when you think about it too.
sure. So I think there's potential for that. I just a lot of it didn't excite me, which I
Also,
was watching the video and I was like, no,
I'll say this. I think a lot of us were curious to see like what the actual model would be. Like, are they gonna do like phases like Marvel does, and are they gonna end each phase with like a Justice League movie or something? Um, I think it's interesting that they're calling it Chapter One, Gods and Monsters. I think that that's going to be something that's unique to this universe. I like that I like that type of structuring where Marvel has the phases, but they don't really have like titles for the phases. So I think that that's interesting. How that's a little bit different. Um, Gives you like a general theme as to what each chapter is going to be about. Whether or not they all end on Justice League movies, I don't think so. I think what they're going to do is probably going to culminate in a Justice League or maybe a couple of Justice League movies. Um, but so that's interesting. I think where I'm lost a little bit is just how these upcoming four already existing DC extended universe movies are gonna tie into the new DCU in Chapter One, Gods and Monsters, because
I,
that's what Gunn made it sound like. Because he was like, "Oh, Shazam! Fury of the Gods is going to lead into the Flash, which is going to lead into Blue Beetle, which will lead into Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and then Aquaman 2 is going to lead into Superman Legacy." But I'm like, "But how though?" That's
I don't think they're gonna like lead in so much as like be their own things, and then Flash is gonna reset everything. So
But here's my thing though, because Aquaman comes out in December, but Flash is out in um, June. So
yeah,
it's like
but Aquaman is such a separate
true.
thing.
Okay.
You could literally ignore the rest of the DC universe. The Aquaman one, if they didn't have the Steppenwolf reference,
Yeah.
you wouldn't ever even care that it's connected to
True.
anything.
Yeah.
So I think you could reset, like Flash could like alter reality or whatever, and
Yeah.
then Aquaman 2 can still pretty much go as it was. You know,
Yeah,
it just
Aquaman 3 set in Elseworlds if you want. I still have Momoa play him.
yeah, but I feel like what they're gonna do is they're gonna because I mean, rightfully so. Aquaman was an extremely successful movie.
Yeah,
So the idea of just throwing that out
right.
seems like a bad business decision after it
Yeah.
made it
Especially where
overblown.
Momoa is so popular, like, the movie's so popular.
I think they're gonna wait and see how Lost Kingdom does, and then they decide, is that reset? I
Yeah.
think that's what they're gonna do for all these, to
I
be
think
honest.
well, I feel like they kinda already have their mind made up with Wonder Woman. I'm not 100% sure.
The fact they're doing a prequel,
That was
Paradise
the other TV show, yeah.
Yep. The
Yeah.
fact they're doing a prequel and kind of sidestepping the Gal Gadot of it all, I
Yeah,
think is kind of telling. Like,
yeah,
and after what we heard where they didn't go forward with Patty Jenkins as Wonder Woman 3,
yeah,
um, I think they kind of already know that they're not gonna follow
yeah,
Gal.
yeah, bring her back, yeah. But even if Jason Momoa doesn't come back as Aquaman, there's rumors of him being Lobo. I don't know who the hell Lobo is. You
Lobo's
probably
a great character. He literally is like a space biker man.
Oh,
Uh,
that's perfect for Momoa.
he looks like Jason Momoa. It's kind of crazy. I'm like, it
Yeah,
is perfect casting, but uh,
yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I just wish that I left that watching that video feeling more hyped up, and
yeah.
maybe I will once they start showing more like concrete things like Superman and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we need to because this is only half the slate so far. So I think we really need to see the rest of the slate. Like people are acting like this is like it, like this is the whole entire first chapter. But I'm like, no, they only announced a few things, like the few things that they can announce, um, that are probably in active development, and then the other stuff, they're probably still because I think he said he has a writers' room, which is probably a good thing.
And
Um,
they're already working with other directors too. Like Ben Affleck supposedly is going to be an architect of this whole thing.
James Mangold might be directing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. So I mean, they're definitely firing on all cylinders and trying to create something. So I'm gonna withhold most of my judgment until they actually come out.
Right, right.
But I just wasn't super thrilled with what we saw. Like I was like,
And I think and even though we're not thrilled, like if this ends up working out, I think that that's going to be the big takeaway because this is how we feel sometimes about movie trailers. Because it's like when you see a trailer, you think to yourself, and it wasn't like it didn't really impress you. You think to yourself, "Oh, that looks horrible." Like we said that about Casino Royale, we said that about Batman Begins, we said that about Edge of Tomorrow, and
mhm.
then look at those movies. They're great, you know. And I feel like it just depends on the public perception of these announcements, and then when we actually get footage of those movies and how they present that footage. Because let's just face it, Sam Fury of the Gods, that second trailer gave away the entire movie. So
Yeah, I
there's like,
wasn't big on that trailer.
yeah, I like the first one more. But I think it really just depends on the other announcements, where they're going to go, how this all connects, whether the footage we see before these movies are released impresses us. If it doesn't impress us, I think the way these are marketed is honestly going to dictate how much these movies make and who they cast as whoever. I mean, there's people that want Jensen Ackles as Batman. I don't know if I want that. Um, but I think my one thing I do like that's different from Marvel as well is that it seems as if they're going to put some animation projects in here that will where those actors could cross over into live action. I think
Yeah,
that that's interesting.
it is. Marvel dabbled a little bit with that with What If. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, it seems like there's going to be more of a concrete connection between the animation and the
yeah,
which I think is interesting, but I also feel like it could be limiting. Like DC's been great with like their animation overall throughout the years.
yeah,
And the idea that they're gonna be, like, so tied now to the live action movies, and even video games they said are gonna be connected to
yeah,
everything,
yeah. Yeah,
it's
so
just
I
I
think
think it's
after
gonna be kinda limiting, to be
I think after Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League comes out, I don't think we're gonna get any sequels to that.
yeah.
I think they're just gonna reboot like they'll probably reboot the Arkham series. I bet. I don't know. Um, I mean, it's interesting because what does that mean? Because I actually really like a lot of those like DC animated movies. So what's gonna happen with those? Like they just rebooted that a couple years ago too with Superman.
Or reboot it again.
Yeah, like are they gonna reboot it again? Like in that whole thing where people want Jensen Ackles to be Batman, it's like, well, he's already voicing Batman in the Long Halloween. He's up voicing Batman in the upcoming Legions of Superheroes. So I mean, is that going to be a crossover? You know, I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
It's still all kind of muddled to me.
Yeah, that's the thing, it's like it's I was hoping that he would give us the slate, and I would feel like, "Yes, I can see the vision," but instead it's like, it still kinda seems messy, James, but we'll see.
It's all going to depend on how it plays out.
Exactly. You can't really, like, judge a movie when it's, like, just an idea.
Yeah,
Like, that's why I mean, people that are already upset about Thunderbolts, for instance, with Marvel, I'm like, it hasn't even started filming yet. Like, I can't really, like,
right,
judge it, you
right.
know?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, you can't really you can't judge a new Superman movie either because A, we don't have a Superman.
Yep.
B, it's still in the middle of being written and there's no director. So, I mean, the idea for that Superman movie sounds cool. But yeah, overall, I think it's a mixed bag for both of us. I did say I was really looking forward to Brave and the Bold, though. Like, I think it's going to be cool having the Bat family in this DCU. I just don't know if you should do it right away. Like, I think you should probably do. I wonder if they're getting away from doing an actual solo Batman movie because of like the Reeves Batman trilogy.
Probably. I mean, it'll help differentiate it, sure, but I just if they are keeping, like, the other former Robins, like Nightwing and Red Hood, like, even Tim Drake, it's like, you're skipping over so much important, like,
Stuff.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I just think that's a weird choice, like, Damian Wayne, I could see why you'd wanna do that, but have that be down the line. I don't think that's for general audiences, they're gonna be like, "Wha wait, Robin's Batman's son?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah, because what is it? Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing?
Dick Grayson's Nightwing, Jason Todd's Red Hood, Tim Drake eventually become Red Robin for a while. Like
The
it's
restaurant?
um, it's just Damian Wayne is that's a whole big thing in itself. Talia al Ghul's his mom. How are we gonna just brush over that? Like we barely
You're
general
more
public barely knows Talia al Ghul.
you're more well versed in the comic sphere than I am because I don't read the comics. I just
Yeah,
kinda go based I'm like, "Okay, like, this is like" I just kinda go like, "Okay, this is based on, like, one of the comic runs," you know? Like, when I watched Robert Pattinson's The Batman, um, I didn't read any of the comics. I just had a couple of the animation movies at my disposal that it was inspired by, like Year One, Long
uh,
Halloween. So I was like, okay, so it's essentially like not adapting, but taking inspiration from
yeah.
those things, you know. So that was how that's how I know of this stuff a little bit. But you're like you know more of that. Like I have no idea that I have no idea that Talia al Ghul is what's his name's mom,
Yeah,
So
so Damian Wayne gets trained by the League of Shadows slash League of Assassins
of course,
from birth, and then he meets Batman, and Batman's like, "Wait, yeah, Talia and I slept together years ago, and like, they would you have a kid."
yeah, that's weird. Yeah, this
It's
whole
it's a great story, but I just don't see how you're gonna like launch a Batman series by being like, "Here's Robin, he's Batman's biological son." Like,
yeah, unless they do something where it's like, oh, he's like his adopted son or something. I don't think they
no,
would.
I don't think you'd use Damien if you're gonna do that. You'd use Dick or Jason or any of the actual adopted kids.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out, even if we are a bit skeptical at this point. Like I said, I do think there is enough differentiation from Marvel where you have like, oh, like this chapter is called this, so this chapter has like its own theme. Where I think nowadays, everybody's like, well, this is called the multiverse saga. Where's the multiverse? You
Yeah.
know. So I think that that's kind of what they're sticking to. I like that. I like that animation is going to come into play too, and how that's going to be connected. I'm not sure how I feel about connecting the video games. I think those should just be its own thing. Um, but yeah, mixed bag. Some I'm looking forward to. Some I'm questioning whether or not they should be a movie and they should be a TV show instead. Um, but essentially, mixed bag for me. Same for you.
Yeah, definitely a mixed bag. I'm hopeful, but I just don't know for sure.
Right, right. All right, so that's gonna wrap up our talk on the new slates of DC. I'll try and get this video up as soon as possible. Um, but yeah, Pat, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at this Pat guy and my YouTube channel Agamotto.
All right. You can find me at my official website, alexmaddenmovies.mystrikingly.com. All my social media links are there. Pat and I will have a big announcement coming very soon. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. My name is Alex. That's Pat. I'll see you at the movies somewhere.